subscribe for notifications. Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone bring you the day's biggest stories, as well as the latest breaking news, with a no-holds-barred, aggressive approach and commitment to bringing you the most cutting-edge analysis and information. For far too long, the liberal media complex has controlled the narrative. For far too long, the silent majority has been muzzled. The silent majority is no longer silent, and we control the narrative now. This is the War Room.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
And welcome into the War Room. I am your host, Owen Schroyer. We are live today, as usual, 3 hours of broadcasting. And right now, you have a situation where if you are a Trump supporter, you are winning big league. But they don't want you to know that, and so they use their Tokyo Roses in the mainstream media to try to beat you down. We'll cover that. A lot of guests. Peter Sweden will be joining me. Jim Hoft, excited to have him on from Gateway Pundit. Darren McBreen in studio, as well as Tyler Nixon over Skype. But first, this is where CNN has stooped to. You thought CNN couldn't go lower? I quit watching CNN because I have zero value in watching CNN now. But look at what CNN is reporting on now.
President Trump has a new doppelganger, and it's not what you think. Here's Jeannie Moos.
We like seeing things. Jesus in a Cheeto, the Virgin Mary in a grilled cheese, a question mark on a cow.
CNN, folks, the comedy news network.
If you think you've had an earful of Donald Trump, check out what's in the ear of a beagle in Britain named Chief. Brace yourself. Some howled with laughter.
It's a spitting image, isn't it?
Others found it violently upsetting.
This is CNN, folks, reporting
Jade
on a dog's
was taking
ear.
photos of her beagle's ears to give to the vet because Chief had an ear infection. A friend first noticed the resemblance.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, there's something in the ear. She was like, it's Donald Trump.
Jade posted the photo to Facebook. Chief went viral. Is it inflammation? Is it an infection? What is it that looks like Donald Trump?
We're breaking this down.
Apparently, the infection caused
what is it about this dog's ear? I want to get Don Lemon's expert analysis on it.
Who once sang Trump tweets.
But
I need to know what Don Lemon thinks about this.
Sent this tweet about the ear image.
Actually, when
It's
Josh
like
Groban reads tweets,
Trump
it's one of the
is
greatest segments
whispering
ever.
in the ear. I'm disturbed,
I don't even care if he makes fun of Trump.
Away. Someone else replaced the real President Trump's head with Chief's ear. As bills from the vet mounted, Jade
thank you,
started a
CNN,
crowdfunding
for
page,
finally providing some value.
Soon surpassed her goal of
Some
around
good old
$600.
laughter. It's good for the soul. It's good for the soul.
Chief, his
You need to
ears
laugh a
are
little bit.
improving with treatment.
And who better to laugh at than CNN?
But he's not into.
Hey, somehow the dog's ear looks like Trump. What is CNN going to do? They got a report on it. Wait a second. Was that dog a Russian agent?
Possibly.
Is that a Russian?
He's got the ear of the president.
I need a full-on investigation launched into this dog right now. Is that dog a Russian agent? Is that dog colluding with Putin? I need to know immediately. Hey, this is from CNN, though. Brian Stelter. We're not anti-Trump. We're pro-truth. All you can do is laugh at a guy like Brian Stelter. Reliable sources with Brian Stelter on CNN. Literally, Brian Stelter is the George Costanza of news. But here's what we're doing today. We're bringing back the memes at War Room Memes. We haven't done this in about a week. I want you to meme Brian Stelter, specifically this one, as Pennywise. Guys, give me a doc camera. Bring this picture up right here. I want you to send your memes at War Room Memes. Send your memes on Twitter to at War Room Memes. Meme Brian Stelter to make him look like Pennywise. I know he already obviously looks like Pennywise, as you can see here. But I want you to meme Brian Stelter, put the INFOWARS logo on there, tweet it to at War Room Memes, and we will retweet it. Pennywise, Brian Stelter, INFOWARS meme, at War Room Memes. This is the War Room. Let's go. Welcome into the War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer. We are live here with you till 6 o'clock Central Time. 3 hours as usual every weekday. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer. Big list of guests today. Peter Sweden is my guest. He's about to join us momentarily. Jim Hoft will be joining us as well in the first hour from Gateway Pundit. Darren McBreen in studio in the second hour. And then Tyler Nixon will be my guest over Skype in the third hour. Not hearing from Roger Stone today. He is busy with litigation business. So, without any further ado, let me bring in my first guest, Peter Sweden, today. Now, Peter, I want to start off with this. There's a lot of real news to cover that's going on in Sweden right now that I know you're drawing attention to, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to know the truth about the story. This is on INFOWARS.com. It's been seen all over social media now. Sweden under pressure to adopt Islamic Nation flag, and it's essentially a Muslim flag symbol with the Swedish flag colors inside it, the blue and the yellow. Is this a real thing? Is this a troll? What is the deal with this?
Well, thanks for having me on. Yes, I have been looking into this. It seems it wouldn't surprise you. You know, Sweden being Sweden, you would think this wouldn't be a big step for Sweden to take. It seems to be that this might be some kind of 4chan troll. But you know, Sweden being Sweden, this likely could happen. You know, the ISIS flag, it's already legal to fly that in Sweden, and so on. You know, returning ISIS fighters, they get social housing, free benefits, and so on. And you know, they even take down the crosses in Swedish churches, so as not to offend Muslims. So this wouldn't be a big surprise, you know, if this would happen in the future. But this particular one seems to be a little bit of a 4chan troll, though.
Yeah, and I think the fears were like, okay, if we do this kind of troll on 4chan, watch out, they might actually take it seriously. And, you know, sadly, that is kind of the joke, though, that Sweden has gone so far in that direction that they would actually adopt an idea like this. But you're saying it looks like it's probably more of a joke and there's no serious movement here.
Yes, that's what it seems like to me. But again, I mean, that this even could be taken as a thing shows how far Sweden has gone towards the path of you know, becoming a joke, because at this point Sweden is a joke of a country when it comes to these things. So that could just go to show how far Sweden has gone.
It really is too bad. And let's get into some of the real news that is more indicative of what you're talking about here. And you tweeted these numbers out today. Sweden rape crisis. New study shows there has been a 150% increase in sexual crime from 2012 to 2016. And this is obviously probably, I would imagine, a similar rate if you put it on a line graph that you are also accepting more immigrants and more refugees. I mean, what are people talking about this? Is this a real issue to the average man or woman in Sweden?
You know, the mainstream media in Sweden is so bent on trying to preserve Sweden's kind of image in the world as being this perfect liberal socialist utopia, so that many people in Sweden don't know what's actually going on in their own country. This particular study is from BRÅ, which is actually the Swedish government's official statistics bureau. But again, you barely see there's no big headlines about this in the mainstream media newspapers in Sweden. There's only the few alternative media that is actually publishing this information, sites like Fria Tider, for example, and others. But when it comes to mainstream media, no, they're completely quiet. I mean, I was talking to an accountant just a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about, I was talking about the no-go zones in Sweden, and he went, what no-go zones? He didn't have a clue. And yet he only lived 15 minutes away from one of the no-go zones himself, and he didn't even know it was one. And that's because the mainstream media is so quiet about this. The word no-go zone is not mentioned at all in the Swedish media. It's completely hushed down.
So I'm thinking about the young girls that go out in Sweden. You know, do they think about this? Is this something that they're worried about? You know, let's say going to a club at night and, you know, dressed as you might expect a good-looking, fit female to dress to a club in club attire. I mean, is this something that they're even thinking about?
Well, it's good to mention it, because there's actually, it seems among females, there's actually quite a few females that are afraid to go outside alone now in the evening, and this probably has to do with they have friends and they experience, because all the rapes going on, the word goes around, even if the mainstream media is quiet about this, word slowly starts to go around. So it actually is quite a few people. There was a study, I can't remember the exact number, but it's about 50% of Swedish females are now afraid to go outside alone in evening.
Wow.
That's how bad it's getting. So even though the mainstream media is kind of quiet about it, people are slowly starting, even if it's not all people, maybe just 50% of the Swedish people, but more and more people are slowly starting to see things, happening in their own backyard. They hear about this local rape that happened over here the other weekend, or, this car's being set on fire, or there was this bombing here a couple of days ago, So word slowly starts to get around, even though the mainstream media is trying to keep it hushed down.
Is it the kind of thing that they openly discuss, or is it the kind of thing that's just kind of like an unwritten, undiscussed thing? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going out tonight because, maybe there's someone out there that might want to grab me or rape me or whatever, and it's just kind of an unspoken thing, like they don't actually want to talk about the issue. They just kind of say, let's just not go out instead.
Yeah, you're 100% correct there, because if they start to talk about that, that would be quite politically incorrect. Because then they will have to start to talk about, who is doing these attacks, who is doing these things, and well, then you start to get into very politically incorrect territory, which it can actually lead you to trouble in Sweden. There was actually a good study that was done. The Swedish government stopped collecting the ethnicity of the rapists back in 2005.
Wow.
So from 2005 till now, we don't have a clue actually who has been doing these rapes. But there is a very good private individual who has been a journalist who has been going through the court cases manually. So he's actually been going through 4,000 court cases of rapes in Sweden. And what he found was that the vast majority, so he looks at the court cases and, he sees who the accused is, and he sees the name of them and sees the ethnicity that way, even though you cannot see it officially through the government statistics, but you can go through the court cases manually. So what he found was that overwhelmingly, it seems to be migrants that have been doing these rapes, specifically when it comes to something that they call assault rapes. So when a woman is assaulted, for example, outdoors and raped, 95% of those rapes of the court cases he went through, 95% of them, a migrant is a suspect. So that kind of gives an idea who is doing this and kind of why it's politically incorrect to talk about these things.
Yeah, this is the toxic equation, I think, what you're seeing in Sweden when you want to force multiculturalism, you want to have open border policies in your government, and on top of that, it's all shrouded in the political correct nature where you can't talk about it, you don't want to offend anybody. It seems like this is kind of the toxic blend of all three of those things that you're experiencing in Sweden right now, and it's destroying your culture.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's and not only is politically incorrect, it can also lead you into legal troubles sometime as well if you speak too openly about a few of these things. If you talk about
and actually we're about to go to break, so hold that thought because we're about to go to break. But I do want to get into that on the other side with you, because I know that when I have spoken to you in the past, you've talked about. Obviously, Peter Sweden isn't your real name. You don't use your real name because there's implications if you put your real name out there. So we'll get into that on the other side with Peter Sweden. This is The War Room. I'm your host, Owen Schroyer. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I think it's really sad what's happened to Sweden. I have a very, very tiny Swedish heritage. There's a couple Swedish people in my family dating back 100 years or so. Like I said, just very small. But I always liked Sweden. I always liked Swedish culture. I always liked Swedish women. And I always wanted to go visit Sweden, Stockholm. I thought was cool. I like Swedish music. And it's just sad to see what's happened to Sweden. Peter Sweden is our guest. You can find him on Twitter @PeterSweden7. No-go zones in Sweden, Peter was talking about. I can't even believe that, Peter, that you have these no-go zones. And how do people not even know that they're there? How do they not know that this is existing?
It's the mainstream media aren't reporting on it, so people basically don't know it's happening other than mouth to mouth, word to word.
Which some people are afraid to even talk about it.
Correct, yes, because it's politically incorrect and sometimes can even get you into legal trouble. And as we said before the break, that's why I've been using the nickname Peter Sweden. Now, I was recently actually doxxed by some leftists. My real name came out, so I actually started going by my real name as well now recently, which is Peter Emanuelsson. Before I was doxxed, I was only going by my nickname Peter Sweden.
So I wanted to know then, because you've come a long way. I mean, just in the last year, I would say you've gone from, some YouTube followers, some Twitter followers. You're pretty popular now. A lot of people follow your work. You get a ton of views anytime you do a video. And you're saying now you're starting to get doxxed. People are coming after you. What about legal? Any legal issues? Have you had any legal issues because of your reporting?
Not in Sweden yet. I've had some legal issues. I've been in some other countries reporting as well, where I've had some legal issues. In the UK, for example, that's been some other issues. It has to do with free speech, but it's not to do with Sweden as such. But other people in Sweden have had problems, legal problems with free speech. For example, people have been writing on Facebook, that migrants are committing too much crimes or so on. And I've actually gone to court and been convicted of so-called hate speech for those things. So just for stating truths, they've been seeing things with their own eyes. They've been putting cars on fires. They've been raping women or whatever. They're writing that on Facebook, and all of a sudden they get into court, get arrested for those things. So that's really insane, really Orwellian when the public cannot even speak about what's happening. And this is all part of why people don't know too much about what's going on in Sweden, because it's all being hushed down, both by political correctness from the mainstream media hushing it down, not talking about things, and also from potential legal actions again from the government too.
Now, is there any pushback in Sweden right now? I mean, here in America, we've had INFOWARS, we've had other media outlets, obviously, that push back against the mainstream media. We now have President Trump in office pushing back against political correctness, open borders. What about in Sweden? Do you have any political pushback? Do you have any pushback in the media other than someone such as yourself who just independently does videos and reporting?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few alternative media that has been popping up in Sweden recently. We have a couple now, Fria Tider, Nyheter Idag, and a couple of others. And there's people like me and a few others as well, doing independent things, talking about what's going on in Sweden. Other than that, I mean, more and more people are starting to wake up. I can definitely see that we have elections coming up next year in 2018, and that will be quite an interesting election, because we have the Swedish Democrats who are basically they like Trump, they are against mass migration, so that they're kind of the nationalist, anti-migrant kind of populist party, if you will. And it'll be very interesting to see how they are doing, because in the polls they've been doing quite well recently. I think that will kind of be a test of how awake Sweden is. See how they're doing.
Yeah, and especially because that's typically how it will go is, the issue will persist and you'll have a response. The public essentially will respond to media reporting on the real issue. And then usually that's when the political movement follows. At least that's what I just saw happen in America. So I guess 2018 is kind of the first test for you guys over there in Sweden. Real quick, though, because we got 3 minutes left with you. Is this the craziest thing ever? Did this really happen? Sweden, your government has now officially made milk a hate symbol. Is that true?
Yes, they officially listed milk as a hate symbol. I cannot keep a straight face, sorry.
Oh my God!
A Swedish government institute called FOY, they officially listed milk and the OK hand symbol as hate symbols of white supremacy.
Can you guys get me a glass of milk? I think I'm going to drink milk while I'm on air with Peter Sweden, and I'm going to give the okay. So what does that mean? So is milk illegal? Can you not drink milk? I don't understand.
No, it's, I think quite a lot of people in Sweden drink milk. I myself, I'm a very, very big milk drinker. I drink at least a liter of milk per day. I don't know. If they come after my milk, I'm going to be pretty angry.
So maybe that's the line in the sand for Sweden. Maybe when they come for your milk, they're going to come for your milk, and then finally Sweden will rise up.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, take away the Swedish person's milk and people might start getting angry. They actually wrote in Swedish. I can translate it for you to English if you want. They actually wrote, this is what they...
Yeah, let's hear the official statement here.
Milk drinking reflects the stereotype about the white body's perfection, they write. And this is why it's a symbol of white supremacy, because it has to do with genetics and white people apparently being lactose tolerant compared to other people who are not as lactose tolerant, apparently. So that's apparently why it's a reason of white supremacy.
Do they provide any science? Is there any science provided to back that up?
No, not that they wrote, but
I've never heard of white people being more lactose tolerant than any race. I've never heard of that. Is that even a thing?
I think it is. I think I have read some science about it. I think it's true that white people are usually more lactose tolerant than other races, but I don't know. Well, they make up some absolute nonsense about it being a stereotype about the Aryan race being the perfect, right? That's why it's a white supremacy symbol, apparently.
I remember Got Milk. They used to run ads. The original milk mustache was actually Hitler. That must have been where it started. The original milk mustache was Hitler. Well,
that's probably it. Yeah, that might be the reason why.
Peter Sweden, you can find him on Twitter at PeterSweden7. Look at his YouTube channel, follow his reports. And Peter, we're going to let you go now. You make sure you go right to your fridge. I want you to pour out all of that racist white milk that we know that you've been drinking. Don't even put that on the air with me. Oh, my gosh. There he is, folks. Peter Sweden in Sweden with the hate symbol, white milk. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, there goes Peter Sweden. All right, when we come back, we're going to be joined by Jim Hoft of the Gateway Pundit. He's breaking news stories almost every day over there. We're going to get his take on some of the ones he's been breaking this week. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the War Room. My guest now is Jim Hoft from the Gateway Pundit. Jim does great work over there, breaking great stories. Not sure where to start with you, Jim. Let's start off with Roy Moore. This is a big subject of discussion right now. And the Gateway Pundit actually had a story yesterday alleging that the signature that one of Roy Moore's accusers was displaying in a yearbook was a fraud. What do you know about this?
Yeah, there's several things about that report that came out a couple days ago, Owen, from that woman, Miss Nelson. The biggest story we have right now on that is that her stepson says that he doubts her story. He's never heard of it. He's surprised that she did this, and he supports Moore 100%. So, that's the latest. As far as his signature, I think the biggest thing is that in the yearbook, you'll notice it looked like two different ink colors in that yearbook. And CNN put that up on their page, and everybody's looking at it like, they didn't catch this? You would have thought they would have seen it themselves.
Well, you'd be surprised at some of the phoniness that comes out of the Democrats. There's been Photoshopped pictures that I've seen in some Senate races, and it's like clearly Photoshopped. And it's like, really, you think people are going to fall for it? So it wouldn't shock me one bit. But right. You're saying, I think the big story here is that the stepson of the woman that accused Roy Moore is doubting her story. I mean, what does that tell you?
Right. It's stunning, and nobody's picking this up. Nobody. You know what's interesting, too? I don't know if INFOWARS has had this problem, but we put up a poll. It was actually first reported in Breitbart. I think it's WKRG in Alabama. It actually wasn't a poll. It was a story about some robocalls going out. and that they were pretending to be the Washington Post, and they were asking for information on Judge Moore. So, who knows who put these out.
But is the Washington Post denying that?
I have not heard that yet. But it sounds to me like it wasn't the Washington Post. It sounds to me like, how these robocalls are so shady most of the time. You don't know who's putting them out. And a lot of times it's, somebody else, the opposition or something, or, it's a lot of tricks with these robocalls. But, the AP took our story off of Facebook because they said it was fake news. And we completely took that from the Alabama website. So we're being targeted now at Gateway Pundit. As you know, Gateway Pundit was very successful during the election, as INFOWARS was. We helped push Donald Trump across the finish line. And so now we're being punished, and this is the kind of crap they're doing. They're trying to take our stories off of Facebook.
Yeah, so one outlet is allowed to report that the sun is in the sky during the day. And if the Gateway Pundit reports that, though, then it's fake news.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just not.
Yeah, no, we're dealing with that same stuff.
By the way, you do a tremendous job when you're out on the street. I don't think there's anyone better. I really think you're great. So, congratulations.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I hope I make St. Louis proud. That is my hometown, after all. That's where it all started with the Aid Skrillex video. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Right. And, some tweeters from St. Louis this week said I was the worst thing to come out of St. Louis. So I'm hoping someday you can take over the
Whoa.
throne.
Okay. Well, look at us. We're a couple of effing white males up here. I mean, we obviously are the worst thing to come out of St. Louis. No,
Right.
Actually, you know what? Let's step away from Roy Moore for a second, since we're talking a little local color here. How about Claire McCaskill? This is a woman that I personally cannot stand. I've never been able to stand this woman. She hates men. And now she's basically gone full bore for Obamacare here, even though most people in Missouri, I think, have had it. They don't want anything to do with Obamacare. And she's demanding now that we pay for Obamacare. So they said this isn't a tax. They're not going to come for your paycheck. They're not going to try to, garnish your wages or whatever. And now McCaskill is essentially calling for it.
Right. It's amazing. And I listened to her yesterday in the committee hearing, and she's screaming about how the Republicans want to repeal this Obamacare tax, this $2,800 that you have to pay if you don't carry Obamacare every month of the year. And she's trying to pretend like this is going to put people off of medical insurance. I mean, her argument is so bizarre. What Republicans are trying to do is to try to get this so you're not punished if you don't carry insurance. And so they're going to drop this off in their tax plan. And as you know, the Supreme Court called this whole thing a tax. And so now Claire McCaskill is demanding that they keep it in there. It's just stunning. I really look forward. I hope we have a great candidate in Missouri to take on this woman. She never should have been there for two cycles.
Right now, you've got Austin Peterson that I'm endorsing, who is going to be running against McCaskill. I do know that the GOP, however, the establishment Republicans are trying to keep Peterson from running against McCaskill. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But just to try to understand the more convoluted picture here, and I want to hear your take on this. If I understand this correctly, basically the new tax plan that's been introduced now in Congress would cut this mandate. It would make it so you don't have to pay this Obamacare, essentially nullifying Obamacare, not taking it out of law, but essentially nullifying it, because now you can't make us buy it. We don't have to pay that $2,800 essentially. And McCaskill is coming out here and trying to save Obamacare, I think, because this is kind of Trump's underhanded way of nullifying Obamacare without actually repealing it.
Right. And she's screaming about people losing insurance, and tomorrow she'll scream about babies dying in the street. It's just the nonsense the left pushes. Complete, there's nothing true about that at all. I don't even know how they came up with that talking point. But they're going to run with it. And we'll see if Republicans fold. But I think it's a great idea. I hope this gets passed through.
Yeah, and I hope that Claire McCaskill continues her unhinged rants, because more people in Missouri are watching now. And believe me, that is not going to endear McCaskill to Missouri voters, especially standing up for Obamacare. I don't care how many people she thinks likes it. As you know, most people in Missouri really are over Obama, but more importantly, over Obamacare as a bill. Let's go back to Roy. Let's go back to Roy Moore here, Jim. So you've got the stepson of the woman accuser saying he doesn't believe her. You've also got people that worked with Roy Moore saying that they never noticed anything or felt uncomfortable. You know, it seems to me that the Washington Post basically just dug a tunnel until they got to the other side of the world, and they found anybody who ever had any former relationship with Roy Moore, and they basically just said, come on, say something bad about him. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but we have to come after these people politically. That's what the left is doing right now.
Right. And you know and I know that if the Republicans allow this to happen, and if they kick this Roy Moore out of the race, Democrats will double down on it next time. So I think you have to stand up and fight it. I spoke this morning, Owen, with one of the top Tea Party activists in Alabama. She's been a friend of mine for years. And she says she doesn't believe a word of this. She's like, he's been in several races. He was running for governor at one point. This never came out then. And she just thinks it's all crap. And a group of conservative women are holding a rally and a press conference next Monday, she told me, in support of Roy Moore. So the people in Alabama, I don't know why anyone in Alabama would believe the Washington Post. They haven't written a pro-Alabama article in 40 years. So I don't think that this article was in Alabama's best interest.
Yeah, and I don't think the people of Alabama, like the Washington Post, trying to dictate their elections. But the point that you just made, I think, is the biggest point. Let's carry this over to the next topic. If Republicans give in to the Roy Moore accusers, if Republicans give in and they take Roy Moore out, that is a victory for the Democrats. This is a total Democrat planned attack, and we'll tell you why on the other side. Here is the truth about why you're seeing all of these Roy Moore accusations now. The Democrats, as a party, are dying. The Democrats are literally on their deathbed, on life support. And every breath they take might be their last. So they are fighting and scratching and clawing for every last breath of life, which in this case represents a seat in the Senate. So they are so desperate to keep their party alive. They are so desperate to put on a faux face of success and momentum and victory that they have to do everything possible to make sure the Republicans do not win this Senate seat. So the Democrats have sent their attack dogs in the media to find any dirt they can on Moore, accuse Moore, slander Moore, and then get the Republicans to remove Moore so that they can declare victory and live on, essentially, for one more election. So that's why what you're seeing right now is happening. This is a full-out struggle for life for the Democrats. Just like if someone is drowning underwater, the moment before they die, when they're drowning, they're kicking and screaming for life. That's what the Democrats are doing right now. Jim Hoft of the Gateway Pundit is my guest. What do you think about that analysis, Jim?
I think it's right on, and I would add that we're seeing these same characters from before the election, the same GOP elites, who are also siding with the Democrats at this time. It didn't take them any time at all to start demanding that Roy Moore step down, and you'll notice it's the same characters. It's Jeff Flake, it's Bob Corker, it's John McCain, Lindsey Graham. All of these rhinos and all these Republicans who never, and Mitch McConnell, who never supported Roy Moore, and now they're the first ones to tell him to step down. And what's the alternative? I guess they think a Democrat would be better. You know, I think we saw that in Missouri, Owen, as we were just talking about a moment ago. We see what happens when a Democrat gets into the Senate from a state that would normally elect a Republican, and we see what they do. Claire McCaskill voted everything Obama wanted. And you know that this would be the same for this Owens guy in Alabama. So I hope Alabama doesn't make that same mistake.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, too, to see just like President Trump's election was kind of a referendum on the way the media reports on politics. I think you're going to see the same thing in Alabama. It's going to be a referendum on the Washington Post, on the Democrat attack dog media. And this is a chance for Alabama to make the same statement America made, saying, you're not going to inject your politics in our election. We can decide for ourselves. But as you pointed out, the establishment Republicans are essentially calling for Moore's head. And I think that really that just tells you he's probably a good thing for the American people in the Senate.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's, and you know what's interesting is we found out from this last election that conservatives in the country today, they don't trust this media. They don't listen to this media. They've tuned out this media, and they're going other places to find their news, like INFOWARS and Gateway Pundit and the Drudge Report and other places, talk radio, Fox News. So they're not listening to the Washington Post. I don't think they give two craps what the Washington Post has to say about Roy Moore. Most of these people, and like I said, the people I've talked to in Alabama, this woman this morning I spoke with, the top Tea Party leader there, she said that everyone she's spoken with who supported Moore support him even more now. So these accusations have not hurt Roy Moore among his supporters at all. It's sort of like what we saw with Trump.
Yeah, sometimes when I like to do research on local issues like this, I'll go listen to talk radio, local talk radio, and see what people are calling into talk shows saying. They're all saying, I'm hearing exactly what you're hearing. And furthermore, I'm hearing people saying, I wasn't planning on going to vote. I wasn't planning on voting at all. But just seeing the Washington Post try to inject themselves into our election and just seeing the liberal media attacking Roy Moore, now I'm going to go vote for Roy Moore. So, I mean, it's just an amazing event, and I think it's going to bite them in the long run. But I'm curious, going back to the referendum on the media, I think that Drudge Report, considering the Washington Post reporting that Drudge is a Russian operative, essentially, I think Drudge Report should stop linking to Washington Post. I think Drudge Report should boycott Washington Post. Washington Post hits would go down 50% in a month, probably even more. What do you think about that idea?
I don't understand. In fact, Drudge put up an article the other day, or a tweet he put out after the Washington Post accused him, linked him to being with the Russians. And then Drudge tweeted out something that showed that 37% of the Washington Post incoming traffic comes from Drudge. So, you know, they're biting the arm that feeds them. And it would be great if he cut them off. They put out so much fake news this year, as you know. Half the stories, half the headlines they've had on Drudge Report have turned out to be false a couple days later about this Russian hoax investigation on President Trump. So I wish Drudge would do that, but I noticed today he's already giving them some more links. So yeah, you know, what can you do?
And also on that topic, you know, don't get me wrong, I love Matt Drudge. Matt Drudge is a huge influence on me, but I don't really like the angle he's playing with this Judge Roy Moore thing. Right. You know, whatever these allegations are, again, what happened to innocent till proven guilty? Furthermore, it doesn't appear that he's done anything illegal, yet Drudge, and I understand the nuance of Drudge, I understand how he operates his site, but to me, the way that he is linking on his website is anti-Moore, and it paints an anti-Moore picture, which is one I'd say Drudge should have been more neutral on this. It seems to me he's kind of going anti-Moore.
Not kind of. He's gone completely anti-Moore, and we've sent him a lot of the stories we've had and that we just talked about, you know, about the stepson who doesn't even believe this woman. You think that would get some attention from Matt Drudge, but for some reason he's really convinced that Roy Moore is not the best option for Alabama. But I'm sort of at the point now, and again, I go back to Claire McCaskill. I think you go with the Republican you have, and because any Republican is better than one of these red socialists that the Democrats are putting up in every state. So, you know, if Roy Moore was dating 17-year-old girls, which was legal at the time, I guess, you know, I'll vote for him over the, you know, the communists in the other party.
And that's kind of what they've done with this whole story and spin is they've made you feel guilty if you go out and vote for Roy Moore. But again, you know, this is about a mandate. It's about the Trump agenda getting fully bought in the Senate and not the anti-Trumpers from the Republican Party and obviously the Democrat Party. But it'll be interesting to see, Jim, and I know that you'll continue to cover all of it at gatewaypundit.com, as will we at INFOWARS.com. So thank you for joining us today, Jim.
Right. If you're in town over the holidays, you'll have to look me up.
All right, I will do that. I will do that. We'll go out and enjoy some of those fine St. Louis breweries.
All right. Take care, Owen.
Thank you. There goes Jim Hoft, making me feel nostalgic here, thinking about St. Louis now. Folks, did you know that InfoWarsStore.com right now has free shipping store-wide? Did you know that? Well, now you do, and now you're going to go to InfoWarsStore.com and buy something, right? Because with free shipping, you can get huge savings on big-ticket items such as emergency food supplies, water filters, air filters. These are some of our bigger products, obviously heavy, so not cheap to ship, but we give you free shipping store-wide right now at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, you need to understand something, folks. If you're on the fence about some of these products, let's say you're on the fence about Vitamin Mineral Fusion. It's 50% off right now, plus free shipping. Well, you've been thinking about trying it. You've been thinking about, okay, maybe this could be a good drink for me or my family or my kids in the morning. You've kind of been on the fence. Well, let me tell you, now's the time. Because it's 50% off with free shipping, and this will sell out. I'm being told that we're already running low on supply of this. So you have to understand, when we run these specials, we do sell out of some of these products, and then we are out of them for a certain amount of time until we get another shipment. So take advantage of 50% off Vitamin Mineral Fusion. You've also got 50% off Caveman Bone Broth Formula, 50% off Z-Shield, 50% off Biome Defense, 50% off Secret 12, Vitamin B12, all has free shipping, and at this rate, they'll probably all be sold out unless you have auto ship, an excellent feature at the InfoWarsStore.com. With auto ship, we automatically send you the products with whatever period of time you want us to send them to you, and you also get 10% off when you sign up for auto ship. So win-win, 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 nothing but wins at InfoWarsStore.com. Okay, War Room Memes, at War Room Memes. Brian Stelter as Pennywise. We're going to review some of those.